The true crime reporter never settles for standing outside the yellow crime scene tape. You knock on doors, dig through records, and cultivate sources to get to the bottom of the story. I'm Robert Riggs, the host and creator of the True Crime Reporter podcast, back with another story from 3 decades of investigative reporting. In this episode, I pulled out my reporter's notebooks. My law enforcement sources opened up their confidential case files. We sat down together to talk. And you can listen in to our journey into darkness. But before you do, be advised that this podcast is for a mature audience and not for the faint of heart. Some episodes may contain profanity and graphic details of violent crimes. To follow True Crime Reporter, text True Crime to 33777. Text True Crime, that's 2 words, True Crime, to 33777. With that said, here we go on another journey into darkness. In the last episode, we learned that Kenneth McDuff started leaving a string of victims a few days after walking out of prison on parole. Local police either missed or ignored clues that could have stopped the killing spree that lasted 2.5 years. The kidnapping of 22-year-old Melissa Northup from a Waco convenience store spurred a group of aggressive Texas lawmen to form an old-style posse. U.S. Marshals, a U.S. attorney, an undercover prison investigator, and a crack deputy sheriff get on the trail of Kenneth McDuff. All roads lead to his mother, Addie McDuff, known as the Pistol Packin' Mama. The case of Kenneth Allen McDuff raises the age-old question about serial killers. Was McDuff the product of nature or nurture? Did genetics create this violent, uncaring monster? Or did McDuff's home life rob him of every ounce of compassion? One thing is clear. McDuff's mother, Addie McDuff, known as the Pistol Packin' Mama, enabled the psychopath. 3 days after Melissa Northup vanished in Waco, Addie McDuff reported that her son was missing. Kenneth McDuff's missing persons report landed on the desk of Bell County Deputy Sheriff Tim Steglich.
I called Addie McDuff to talk to her about the situation. I asked the general questions. Has he ever left before? Knowing in the back of my mind that she either knew where he was or he wasn't actually missing in the first place. And so it just kind of progressed from there. I'm looking for a guy that has just jumped parole.
Filing a missing persons report is an old ploy used by ex-cons to try to throw the law off their trail. McDuff's mother reported McDuff missing a few days before he became the Marshal's prime suspect in the kidnapping of Melissa Northup. Remember, McDuff wasn't yet a suspect. Well, Steglich figured McDuff had jumped parole and had asked his mother to file the report to cover it up. Steglich drove to McDuff's parents' home in Belton. They're located midway between Waco and Austin, the 2 cities with unsolved kidnappings. Steglich encountered the definition of a dysfunctional family.
They were elderly already. They had a successful business in construction. I believe it was house foundations, which is a bit disturbing after knowing that he was in the concrete business. Addie McDuff controlled the house. She would tell her husband to shut up when I was interviewing them. And I was having to tiptoe around the Waco and the Austin issues at the time, and I'm trying to find her son for her. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help you. And she was evasive. I knew she'd been talking to him periodically. And so she was a terror. And I think he may have been a mama's boy, and very much so, which attributed to some of his traits.
Did you feel threatened by her in her presence?
Not physically. Not at all, and certainly not by her husband.
Yeah.
She was a fairly large woman.
Mm-hmm. What would you leave there thinking?
The bitch knows where he is. And I was getting pretty frustrated with her. She probably did not know exactly where it was, but she was not being honest about any of it.
When the marshal started hunting McDuff, Steglich went back to his parents' house to ask more questions. His supervisor was concerned that McDuff might be hiding out there waiting to ambush lawmen. So Steglich asked prison investigator John Moriarty to back him up. Moriarty says Addie McDuff fit the serial killer profile to a T.
I mean, McDuff's mother was very overbearing, real loud. When you look at the profiles of serial killers, and they talk about their mothers being overbearing and
Domineering.
And God, I mean, she fit it to a T. His father was old and frail and was with me in the living room, and so I struck up a conversation with him. And during the conversation, I said to him, well, what do you think about this whole thing? And of course, now you've got to back up that when he was 19, when he killed those others, he was working for the old man and doing construction. And the old man just looked at me and said, well, it's kind of like having a dog. You know what they're doing when you're there, but you don't know what they're doing when you're not. Kind of another chilling fact of even the old man knew.
The next lawmen to come knocking on Addie McDuff's door were U.S. Attorney Bill Johnston and U.S. Marshal Parnell McNamara.
We had gotten a search warrant for the mother and father's house on Cedar Creek Road in Bell County, outside of Temple. So we took Tim Steglich with Bell County SO, a bunch of marshals down there with us, and we raided the house. And so she came up to me. We told her we were looking for him because one of our informants had seen some things in the house that led them to believe that he had been there or was there at the time they were there. So we got the search warrant, went down there immediately. She came running up to me and said, please, whatever you do, don't hurt Junior. Called him Junior. Here's 6'4", 270, been on death row, multiple murderer, and he's called Junior by his mother, and said he ain't done nothing and he ain't hurt nobody. And I said, are you telling me you don't believe that he killed those 3 kids back in 1966? And she said, he said he didn't, and I know he didn't. And so I realized right then, she was a big part of the problem. And so then we met his father, who came up during the search warrant, and the pickup that he had run the police roadblock with Brenda Thompson tied up in and got away, and then killed her shortly after he got away from the Waco Police Department, was in the driveway. And so it had a receipt in there that we got where the windshield had been put in by, an auto glass place.
Where his victim had kicked it out.
Where Brenda Thompson had kicked the windshield out when the police saw her tied up in there. So the father came over and he said, if he did what y'all said he did, just go ahead and kill him. Quite the opposite of what the mother said, but that was the father's attitude when we were there. And he was just very matter of fact. If he did what y'all said he did, then you might as well just go ahead and kill him.
Bill Johnston says Addie McDuff was the original helicopter mother taken to the extreme.
He didn't have much nurture. Well, he had nurture, but it was the wrong kind. So McDuff's mother was mean as a snake, surly, ornery, rude, unpleasant in every respect. And his father was interesting. His father, I recall we were in the garage and his father was out there. His father said, that boy's cost me, talking about Kenneth, that boy's cost me $1 million or something like that. And he said, when you find him, you can kill him if you want to. Just as a matter of fact. Now, Mrs. Addie McDuff, the old witch mother, said, her great line of the day was, "Y'all don't frame him like you did the last time." You're talking about his 66
Serial
case.
killing them.
Right, in Fort Worth, Texas. So she was the big denier, and Daddy had it with him. But they were terrible, terrible human beings, and not much different than you would have expected.
And I guess that along the way you found he had abused family members and stuff.
Right. There were sisters that came forward. Parnell talked to a number of them. He was abusive when he was very young. He had sisters that were in the single-digit age that he was sexually abusing. He was a sick freak from when he was very young.
Dan Stotz, who led the Marshal Service Task Force, says McDuff's mother was one of the hardest and meanest people he ever questioned during 33 years of hunting fugitives.
He had no humanity about himself. Talking to his mother, dealing with the sister. He had a sister. She's in the hospital. I forget what operation she was going through. She explained to me after we dropped the barriers that he rolled her on the side and raped her, his own sister, after the operation. This guy had he was inhuman.
But Mama thought he did no wrong. Tell us about her. You're dealing with her, Addie.
My Addie was a piece of work. Addie loved her son very, very much, and he did no wrong. And no matter what you tell her, no matter how you dealt with her, you couldn't convince her any other ways.
Stotz resorted to another tactic to get Addie McDuff to cooperate. Every night, his search helicopter shined its spotlight into her house. Stotz thought a dose of insomnia might make the pistol-packing mama give up her son. It didn't work.
So my approach was, I saying, Addie, you know that light that's shining in there? And she said, yes, I think you're all giving me cancer. And I said, okay, you figured us out, Addie. And so every night when that light would hit her, I would call her up and say, how are you feeling today? So again, there was no talking reality to her, saying your son needs to come in, he's harming people. So you just had to play her game.
You're trying to break her down to give up her son.
No sleep. That's what I was trying to do. So we could approach her and talk to her sensibly.
Did it work?
No, did not.
She's that tough.
She was tough. I think deep down inside, my personal opinion is that McDuff's mother was so entwined with this young man. I think there was a different relationship between him and his mother. They were very, very close. The sisters, the other kids, seemed like they had to protect McDuff. That no matter what the mother said, no matter what McDuff would do, the mother was always there to protect McDuff, and they were. That was a tough. The mother was just amazing. I've never met anybody like her. She was standfast. She was so loyal to that young man, but he was an animal.
Author Gary Laverne says some of the lawmen confided to him that they were just a little bit afraid of Addie McDuff.
McDuff's older brother had some problems on a school bus, and she is reported to have approached the bus driver with a pistol that she had in her purse. And it was believed widely among the people of Rosebud that she just had a pistol in her purse at all times. And I will say this. Now, I know you've had a lot of other law enforcement people on this program. All of them are people I admire and I'm friends with. But each one of them told me in very hushed tones that they were more afraid and were more careful with her than with him. Because with McDuff, you knew what you were dealing with. And if he did something, you'd just shoot him, and who's gonna blame you for that? You're dealing with Kenneth McDuff. With his mother, though, and with other members of his family who were just kind of weird, you can't, you just have to be careful, and you don't know what they're going to do. In many ways, that woman was just believed to be crazy. And how do you deal with someone like that?
Next on True Crime Reporter, Deputy Sheriff Tim Steglich breaks the case wide open. Steglich obtains a confession from McDuff's accomplice. It is a journey into darkness.
He's the epitome of evil, just a totally evil person.
Aren't you glad it's not a crime to love reality TV? Hey, true crime lovers, this is Shannon, one of the researchers for this podcast. Paper Chaser Paper Goods is your go-to spot for all of your reality TV obsessions. Check out paperchaserpaper.com and channel your love of the Real Housewives with Paper Chaser's reality TV themed gifts. From cocktail napkins to Bravo TV themed invitations, Paper Chaser has everything you need to host happy hour at your place and be the it girl of your inner circle. Now remember, it's not a crime to love reality TV. Paper Chaser believes life's a party, so celebrate something every day. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for the latest Paper Chaser and reality TV scoop. We'll see you on paperchaserpaper.com.
True Crime Reporter is a trademarked and copyrighted news show. It is an original co-production with Podcast Ad Reps. Hosted and written by me, Robert Riggs. Executive producer Elizabeth Arnold. Audio production by Matt Stoker. Original music by Blair King. Associate producer Siler Burr. Social media producer Grace Woodward. Publicity Tim Livingston, PR. Photography Igor Kurgulatz. Graphics Brian David Kerr Designs. Special thanks to Gary Laverne, author of Bad Boy from Rosebud, The Murderous Life of Kenneth Allen McDuff. The audio recordings of the Senate Criminal Justice Committee hearings are courtesy of the Texas State Archives. Archive sound bites included in the episodes are from my original Reporter's Notebook tape recordings. And for our listeners who stayed to hear the credits, here's a little bonus. Tell me about Worley. Why Worley? Why would McDuff want Worley in the car with him as an accomplice?
He was similar to Roy Dale Green, probably slightly more intelligent, but small enough in stature. And that was a big thing with McDuff. If you look at his victims, most of these victims were 5'5", shorter, thin, unable to fight, except for one potential victim. And this was a prostitute in Temple. What happened was I had brought her down in the jail about another matter. She sees a flyer with McDuff's picture on it lying on a desk, and she says, "That's the one that tried to take me." And I said, "Holly, are you sure?" She said, "Yep." So I took a statement from her. McDuff had pulled up to pick up a prostitute. Holly is about 5'9", 140, 150 pounds, and a street person. You're really going to have to be pretty strong to control her. He gets her into the car. Things start going south quick because he goes into his abduction mode. Even though he didn't actually abduct her, this is the way I believe that his mind worked, is that I got her now. She can't get out of the car.
And the mode is? What's the mode he goes into then?
He's totally in charge. He owns this person. This is what I believe goes through his mind. This person's going to die tonight. I can do whatever I want. Holly had a different idea. She picks up a high heel and starts wailing on McDuff. He's had enough. He pulls over and she gets out. Now understand, this is probably not the first time this happened to her. She didn't report it. There was no reason to. But after I got to know Holly after a while, if she had known the situation, she would have reported that.